What's up and welcome to Just Google It. My name's Chris.
I'm Tegan and Chris. Today, we're going to dive into Google's release of Gemini and how that's going to impact the AI landscape right now. Now, one of the first questions I have from this is the differences between Gemini versus Chat GPT-4. What does that look like?
Yeah, it's funny because we're in this sort of like AI race, right? Like the traditional space race. We're always racing for some kind of technology, but instead of countries right now, it's also countries, but it's more these really large hyperscalers, right? These people that have very large amounts of computing power. And so these solutions are very similar, but I think what Google's fundamental way they're approaching it is, one, they want the compute power, but they also want to make it very attainable and very relatable to humans in general and the way we use technology. And so a couple of things that I think Gemini does really well that's a little different than Chat GPT-4. First off, you've got this idea of a context window, right? And if you think about a context window, it's essentially like your short-term memory of a generative AI model. It basically has something called tokens, and tokens are bits of information that a model can remember to then its output adjust based on what has already been inputted. So I think that the thing about ChatGPT 4 Turbo is it can do about 128,000 tokens in its context window. But Gemini can go up to 1 million, right? So it's going to make more accurate output based on the person's input, which is a huge win. And going back to what I talked about of the way we relate to technology, I think one thing about Gemini that's really good is they've really focused on multimodal input and output. And what that means is not just text, right? But video, images. If you think about the way we interact with the internet, the way we interact with social media, we don't just send text, right? We don't just put in text. We did when Twitter was just a thing, but now you have Instagram, TikTok, right? You've got all these different forms of media that we interact with, and it's images, videos, text, all these things put together. And I think that is where Gemini really does have an edge.
I love that. That makes sense. And just one of the hot takes I actually have is privacy concern. That's the biggest thing I could think of when this came out. There's a lot of corporations out there when they're opening these boxes. It's kind of like Pandora's box. They don't know what their employees are going to put into it. Like it could be privacy data, it could be stuff that they shouldn't be sharing outside. I'm sure a lot of these guys don't want their models or their employees to train these models to go out and have other companies have the access to the same models. Do you think that's like a huge concern people should be thinking about, or do you think it's top of mind?
Yeah, it's definitely top of mind, right? In general, if every organization, a good organization, should be thinking about these things, right? You
Yeah.
should be setting up AI councils to talk about the pros, the cons, the things that scares you, the things you don't want to happen, right? To be prepared to make a really calculated decision in going into AI. You shouldn't just do it flippantly. But, this is the reason why Google created the secure AI framework. I think it was last June they released it, right? And it's a six
Yep.
step process of basically best practices to make sure that the foundation is set to be able to best implement AI and deploy it, right? And speaking for Google too, the way these large language models work, especially if you're doing a custom one within your environment, is it's a service called Vertex AI. That basically what you do is you load a large language model into a frozen environment. So it's on your cloud instance. No one else, not even Google, has access to it. And then you're able to layer and load your data onto that frozen instance of the large language model, right? So as far as privacy in regards to their personal data getting out to the world, it's kind of the same approach as their cloud environment in general and their databases that they've got things stored in, right? It's a frozen environment that you can use, that you can be able to output, and you just got to make sure that you're not allowing that chatbot to give any sensitive data out to, say, if it's a consumer facing chatbot on your website, right? You want to make sure that they can't ask it questions and it bring back sensitive data. But other than that, yes, privacy is a big concern, but I think, Google, OpenAI, all these people are thinking about it. They're getting sued about it too, right? But it's something that's very top of mind. It's something that good companies should be concerned with.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think I was actually just at the Google office yesterday here in Austin, and one of the biggest things that they were talking about was that privacy for these large language models. If a company is deployed within their environments, that data is going to stay within their company, and they're not going to use it to train models. That way, other companies can, reap the benefits of those models that were trained by, say one company versus another company. Make Google make sure it's completely separated and siloed out, and they're not even using it for advertising. I know that's another big concern for a lot of people. My background came from security and Google Chronicle, where the SIM. The biggest thing was, are you going to use this data, my security logs, because they know Google's a huge advertising arm. And they said, nope, that's not it. That's not how we operate. We're making sure everything's completely siloed and it's separate. But that's enough about privacy. Something I heard the other day, corporate Ozempic. Now, this is something I did not coin.
Ozempic.
I wish I did. Exactly, corporate Ozempic. I wish I coined it, but I heard it in a podcast. It was by Scott Galloway, and basically it was talking about how corporations are now implementing AI to use it as corporate Ozempic to tighten their belts, increasing profits at the same time. But something I thought about was in terms of how fast employers are going to roll out AI. What are your thoughts there? Do you think it's going to be like we're not going to see all these companies using AI and just average day users? Because it's talked about all the time. When do you think, what does that learning curve look like?
Yeah. So two things to that question. First, I want to talk about the how long did these things take to deploy, right?
Yeah.
Every vendor, every one of these companies is going to want to let you think that these are plug and play, open the box, plug it in solutions that you can deploy tomorrow. And they've done a really good job on certain things in doing that, right? Like chat bots, enterprise search features. Like these are two ways that generative AI can work pretty seamlessly out of the box. But most of the custom AI models that companies are going to be building that are very specific to what they're doing and their business use cases are still going to follow the traditional path of AI, right? It's going to be a large language model layered with your personal data, and then you're going to have prompts that train that large language model to output what you want, right? So the thing that has sped this up though is generative AI. So in the past, AI was able to just pull data, right? Predictive AI just was able to give percentages, pull data from a large language model, and present that. Well, generative AI now can actually create brand new strings of text, images, video, and because of that, AI has started to train itself, right? And so you're creating new things that is different input that's now creating different output as well. And it's kind of a self fulfilling prophecy, kind of. And so that has sped up the learning curve of these models immensely, but it is not an overnight thing. It definitely still takes some time. In regards to actual, end user use of these things, I think the way that companies have gone about this is really smart, especially in the idea of natural language, right? That's a huge buzzword in the AI world, and it's because they want you to interact with a generative AI model the way we're interacting right now, right? They want you to be able to have a conversation with these things. And I think the closer they get to the actual being, feeling like you're talking to another human being, the faster the adoption rate's going to be with end users.
Yeah, I love that. I think you hit the nail on the head there. One last thing before we wrap up here. It goes into the user adoption idea. But I'm seeing a lot more jobs in LinkedIn. I'm sure a lot of other people about AI specialists. Do you think this role is going to be widespread between not only just tech companies, manufacturing, think transportation, think even healthcare? Are you going to see these jobs out there where it's AI specialists who are coming out of college or, again, coming out of maybe upper graduate school, and they're coming in to help employees roll this out, help it's embedded in their like training and development programs? Do you think there's going to be a lot more jobs like that in other industries coming out?
Oh, 100%. I think that the biggest fear is that, AI is going to come and take all of our jobs, right? But the truth is, yes, there are some jobs that probably need to be automated and can be automated. But in addition to that, there's going to be a lot of other very specialized, high paying, valuable jobs that are going to be created out of this, right? Like if I was talking to a college student right now, This isn't a role I have seen posted yet, but I would say become a prompt engineer, right? Because on the back end, you've got to have these people that are able to actually input something that
Hmm.
actually defines what the AI model is going to output, right? And you're going to need a person to do that, right? Maybe not always, but at least in the next 5 years, prompt engineers, they're going to be your new data engineers, your new SOC
Yeah.
analyst, right? Like this kind of analyst job that works with these specific security or technology tool sets. You're going to see a lot of prompt engineers and AI specialists in the market, and it's a great place to start a career.
Man, I love that. If only I could go back in time, Chris, that would be the days. But hey, everyone, I appreciate you joining us today. Again, this is Keegan Brown with Chris Shaw. It is just Google it. And next week, we are talking about Google Maps rollout of their new autocomplete. Thanks.